Our school NSIT, our pedagogical approach is grounded in the combination of DIR floor time and Reggio Emilia approaches to be highly play-based and elevate experiences for neurodivergent students. And our mission is to maximize the potential of each child. It is our great pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Jeff Gunzel and Dr. Gil Tippy. Jeff is the CEO of International Council on Development and Learning, ICDL. And Gil is the expert DIR floor time expert training leader. Thank you. And Jeff, I'd like you to pass on the mic to you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for the introduction, and glad to be with all of you for this little short presentation on what DIR is, what DIR floor time is. And Gil and I will try to walk you through the basics, and then assuming that all of you are coming with some interest in what this is, we want to have plenty of time for questions and answers. So we look forward to that at the end, which we'll try to, I think, keep it focused at the end so we can manage the recording aspects for everyone. So let me get the PowerPoint up here. Gil and I really don't need a PowerPoint per se, but let's see if I can get this to switch, and it's not switching. Why is it giving me that one? Hold on for 1 second. I apologize. You know, this never happens to me, Gil. I do these all the time.
Yeah, you're a pro at this, Jeff.
I don't understand what is happening, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to get this open. I think sometimes when it's a different Zoom hosted, the rules are a little different on what's set, and my settings didn't align with current settings.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll introduce myself. My name is Gil Tippy. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I am one of the founders of the Rebecca School in New York City for people with different ways of relating and communicating. And I am one of the founders of Shrub Oak International School in also in New York, a large boarding school for individuals who have neurodiverse ways of being. And I am also the author of Respecting Autism with Stanley Greenspan, who created the DIR floor time model that we're going to talk about.
So, and my background is as a in the psychology realm as a counselor for the last 30 plus years, and as was already said, the CEO of the International Council on Development and Learning, and ICDL is really the home of floor time. We've existed for the last 35 years. Dr. Greenspan was our founding president and really created the organization to continue to do the work that we're doing today. So what is DIR and what is DIR floor time? Also just called floor time. We use the DIR floor time just to make some distinction, because there's lots of people out there talking about having floor time with the child and interpret it very differently. And we want to just be clear as we're talking about floor time, that what we're presenting is based on this DIR theoretical framework. So DIR, in many ways, you can think of as the theoretical framework. This was Dr. Greenspan's original work 50 plus years ago of developing an understanding of how young children grow and develop, and then looking at development through the lifespan. But when he started as a child psychiatrist, there was very limited understanding of early childhood development beyond more the physical development. When we talk about the social emotional and connecting it to the cognitive and the behavioral and the physical, there was not a robust understanding of all of that in a synthesized way. And DIR was a framework that he created to bring all that together and to give us an understanding of how development really happens, not just when does a child sit up and when does a child walk, but really how does the human develop in all domains of their life from birth and throughout the lifespan. So the D of DIR are these developmental capacities, and it's the centerpiece of understanding how the development happens and kind of each step of that process of the development. And the I, the individual differences, is an understanding of the unique ways each one of us are wired, if that word works well. But all the biological differences, the differences that are part of the environment and our culture and our family, but it's all the unique ways that we each perceive the world, understand the world, how we take it in. And then the R is an understanding that human development happens in the context of relationships with other humans. So, a baby is born dependent upon a relationship with another human for survival. A baby literally wouldn't survive if it didn't have another human or humans taking care of it. This is part of being human, where our learning and growth is developed based on our relationships with other people. An analogy I always use to describe this is the D is like the GPS. It gives us the information about the trip we're on. And in this case, it's the developmental trip. But when we plug in the GPS where we want to go developmentally, this D, this developmental framework helps us understand, okay, this is where we're at right now, and this is where we want to go next. And here's how we're going to get there. But the I is like the part of the app that tells you all about the road conditions along the way. It tells you about where there may be weather conditions that are going to slow up your travel, or where there may be a detour. And you're still going to go to the same place. The GPS still has you going from point A to point B, but you're going to have to go a different way. And it might be a way that takes a little longer, that you're not as familiar with, that you might have to drive a little bit slower because you don't know which way you're going, but you still know you're going to that same place. And that's what the I is like. It's all of that information about the trip. And maybe there's a point on the trip where the road is really wide open and there's no traffic, and you can make up some time, and you can really go a little bit quicker and more smoothly. But it gives you all that information. The R is like the car. It is what drives development forward. Those relationships are what drives development forward. And then if I take the analogy one step further, we talk a lot about this affective and emotional connection with other people, and how important that is to development. And that's like the power in the battery cell, or the fuel in the tank that moves that car forward, is that emotional affective process that's going on in relationships, because we feel those connections with other people. And then Floortime, or DIR Floortime, is taking that theoretical framework and understanding how development happens and how individual differences impact development, and how we can use relationships to support development. It's taking all of that knowledge and putting it into practice, and moving that developmental process forward. Some key thoughts in thinking about what DIR Floortime is, and this is a really short presentation and in many ways does not do it justice, but I want to give you some basic ideas, is it's all about development. And when we talk about development, we talk about this kind of inside out idea of really building the foundation of human development and building up from there. If it's like building a house, you start with the foundation and you build up from there. There's so many things that we're thinking about from an inside out perspective. So when we see a child's behaviors, we can observe the behaviors, but we want to know what's going on inside that child, in their brain, in their bodies, that's resulting in that behavior. That behavior is just kind of a window into what's happening inside. And oftentimes professionals will, and parents will end up focusing on the outside. We want to get to the inside. We want to look at human development, not just on how much does a person know and what have they learned, but how have they developed as a human, that they can actually problem solve through all sorts of things, not just one aspect of knowledge, but that they developed a capacity for being engaged with other people and problem solving and thinking and reasoning. So it's a lot of these core concepts, more, again, the inside out is a simple way of saying it, but we want to get to that development from the inside out, not outside in. I mentioned the affect in relationships. When we talk about affect, it's a word that does not translate well and isn't used in every language, but it's about the emotional process that's going on. There's much more to the feelings we feel than just the feelings. It's a whole body experience. When have points where you feel more sad, you probably have physical manifestations of that. You may be more tired and sleepy, or not want to sleep, or not be able to sleep, or maybe when you get really down emotionally, you eat everything in the refrigerator, or you don't eat anything at all. Like, we have these physical connections to that emotional experience. And that's just one quick example of how the interconnection happens. And so we understand how this emotional process can really immobilize the brain and the body and create lots of wonderful integration. And so we're focused on building those relationships and the process of those relationships. Really understanding the individual differences of each person. We talk about neurodiversity a lot now in the world. The idea of neurodiversity has gotten much more attention, but this is something we've been talking about for the last 50 whatever years, is understanding that everyone in the idea of neurodiversity is there's this spectrum, right? We're all different from each other, and how our neurology perceives the world, how our brain takes in the world and works. And it's understanding there's just a wide range, and every one of us are part of that spectrum of diversity in our neurology. Now, we have some people that are what we say more neurodivergent than others, that have more significant differences. That's where the idea and the term neurodivergent comes from, is really understanding that some people are have more significant differences in that neurology. But it's embracing that and understanding that, and helping development happen in the context of the unique person that's in front of us. It's a strength-based model. I'm not going to say too much about this, but it's much more about understanding how we can build from where the individual's at, and not thinking of them from a deficit-based lens of there's something wrong or broken with them that we need to fix, but that there's strengths that they have and we can build upon them. And if we do it well, it's not just a kinder, maybe more gentle way of supporting development, especially when children have developmental differences. It can be a much more effective way. And I can't get into the details of that, but it's a very effective way to support development. And it's all about Floortime building these core capacities, a capacity for being well regulated, that you can be calm and interested in what's going on, and you can engage with others, a lot around communication and being able to communicate with others, and then thinking and reasoning and problem solving are all a part of what we're doing in Floortime. Floortime and neurodiversity. I want to make this connection because I love what's happening in Japan, and so many things related to trying to move forward these ideas around neurodiversity. And where DIR connects with neurodiversity and the neurodiversity movement so well is that when we understand the D, the developmental capacities, it's kind of the typical way we understand humans develop. And it works really well. It's very robust, but it's kind of a typical understanding of this is how humans develop. And there's plenty of research behind it and all that. But when you take the I and you understand truly the unique way that an individual in front of us, a child in front of us, is perceiving the world, taking in the world, how their sensory and motor systems are working, all these things, and you connect it with the D, you then gain this unique understanding of their individual neurodiverse developmental process. And that's where, from a neurodiversity movement, when people talk about neurodiversity, DIR fits in so well because it's what we do. It's not something we're trying to adapt to. It's just part of what we do. We talk a lot about floor time and young children, and you see videos with individual therapists or parents providing floor time to children. But I want to be clear that, and a lot focused on autism, but I want to be clear that floor time is used much more widely than just little kids and much more widely than autism, and in many settings, in therapy centers and clinics and schools, and it has a wide application. So I'm going to go into changing perspectives on autism, and I'm charging through, Gil, because we have a short amount of time. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to add to what I said, or should I just keep charging through?
You can charge through. At some point, I'd like to talk just a little bit about education and DIR floor time. So you pick a spot where you think that would go best, and I'll be glad to jump in.
Sounds good. So there are changing perspectives on autism that are happening, and I just want to highlight a few quick things. Autism, by definition, is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And I often think of it more as a difference than a disorder now, but in the diagnostic manual, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. And I highlight this because this is not a new thing. This is something that's always been in the diagnostic manual. But the way a lot of people have seen autism, and it's been presented as a behavioral disorder, and that there's behaviors we need to change. And so people have implemented behavioral techniques to change behaviors. But at its core, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. And what does this mean? It means that there's differences in the neurology that's impacting the development of that neurology and development overall. If it's a neurodevelopmental difference, then we need neurodevelopmental approaches. And that's what floor time is. It's understanding that neurology is that unique way that each person is developing. And then our goal is to promote development, not necessarily to change behaviors, but to promote development. And this is where kind of thinking about what we're doing in this process of whether we're changing those external behaviors or supporting the internal development. And what we're seeking to do is to support that internal development. And you see a lot more movement in the autism field of understanding that just this behavioral management is not working well at all, and may have real negative impacts and negative side effects as we're seeing it. And what we're hearing from adults that have been through more structured behavioral therapy through their lives is all the negative aspects of that. And here in the States, Gil and I are both in the US. The American Medical Association actually made a shift. They used to endorse and support ABA, and last year, or I guess 2 years ago now, they made a policy shift because there was lots of concerns brought forward about ABA and a more behavioral approach, and lots of research presented in regards to more developmental approaches like floor time that have been around for a long time, but weren't getting as much recognition. And so we're seeing big institutions shift. In the States, the American Academy of Pediatrics has now kind of saying families should be having access to more things than just the behavioral approaches, including floor time, and the research is supporting it. Floor time is evidence-based. There's all sorts of research to support floor time from randomized controlled trial studies. I'm not going to play this video. We're going to skip through. We may be able to come back to that depending on the questions and answers. But there's all sorts of research, and I just want to, there's brain research, there's all sorts of research. You can go to our website, you can see it. If that is a concern of yours, please know that there's lots there. So these developmental capacities, the D, we're not going to go over this in detail, but these are the first 6 core developmental capacities. And you'll see that this isn't, when we think about teaching our children, it's not about skills. It's about developing these core capacities. You know, when you think about social interaction and the autism diagnosis, one of the criteria is challenges with developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships. That's not something that we're directly taught as much as we develop while being in relationship with other people. It's not always about the skills of doing it, what the skills are of human interaction. It's about developing the human so they're engaging with others and have developed that ability and that capacity to be calm and well-regulated and be able to engage in back and forth with others and develop their capacity for thinking and reasoning, which interconnects with what we do in schools. And I'll turn it over to Gil.
Thanks, Jeff. I want to talk about 2 things that Jeff hit on, and then maybe branch out a little bit. One of the things that we love about DIR floor time is its understanding of individuals' strengths. When we say we are a strength-based model, it means that we see in every person the things that they have that need to be fostered and helped to flourish so that they can grow into the individual that they wish to be. And I always say, and I've now done thousands of intakes at schools, at clinics, in my practice around the world, I always say that I have never met a child or an adult in my practice or in my work who was not at least as intelligent as I am, and probably a good deal more intelligent. It is a matter of seeing people's strengths and bringing them to the front. And I think DIR floor time is the vehicle to do that. So it's a strength-based model, and we take it very seriously. The other thing that I want to say, and Jeff and I totally agree on this, is that good autism education is just good education. So what I mean by that is, if you are going to support individuals to bring their strengths out in a way that allows them to collaborate with others in a problem-solving way around problems that neither of them as individuals might know the answer to. If you help someone to do that, you are bringing them into the society in a way that will allow them to pick and choose what it is that they wish to do. That'll allow them to imagine what their future looks like and how they might be a part of the greater society and how they might want to interact. I think this idea, fostered very much by DIR floor time, is consistent with the way that people who are neurodivergent speak of themselves and think of themselves. And indeed, it's the way that we'd all like to think of ourselves. So DIR floor time in the school setting, which I have some familiarity with, really does allow students to look at a problem, imagine how they might solve that problem, and then be able to sit down and tackle it without the notion that here is a roadblock that I cannot overcome. And if we can do that with individuals who we might consider neurodivergent, then we should also be able to do it with individuals who do not consider themselves neurodivergent. And that's why I always say good autism education is just good education. All educational systems need to produce individuals who can think and create and collaborate. And that's what we aim to do with DIR floor time. And it's a great model for that in the context of relationship, as Jeff said. So I think I'll stop because we want to leave plenty of time for questions. And I see that questions are already coming up in the chat box. So I'm going to throw it back to Jeff. But if you have specific questions for either of us, we're both here and we're ready. Jeff, did you want to say something else before we jump into that part?
I'll just piggyback on what you're saying in regards to good education. Good autism education is just good education. Good education for neurodivergent kids is just good education. There's internationally, this is work that we're doing. There's challenges in schools overall that get caught up in collecting data on outcomes in teaching. And I think at times miss the foundational aspects of supporting the development of the individual. Because if we develop their capacity for problem solving, thinking, reasoning, whatever it may be, then teaching information becomes so much easier. And their ability to navigate, interact with that information is so much easier. So I'm already talked about this and talked about the I and the R, but I want to highlight the caregivers. Floor time was used in many settings, including schools and by therapists like Gil and I, but the centerpiece of floor time is coaching parents to implement this with their children. Because secure detached relationships, the relationships between a parent and a child, can mobilize that development so well. It's not about making parents therapists. That's not our goal. It's about really fostering that relationship and that connection. And in many times, I find it's helping parents move away from trying to teach so much, especially when there's a challenge. Parents get nervous about, will my child ever speak, or will my child ever do these different things? And so at times can become mini therapists and not lean into that relationship and that connection as a parent. And what we understand is all the wonderful things that go on in that relationship. So I want to show one video of a and hopefully this is, oh, it's not, well, I'm gonna stop the share because that video is not going to pop up right now. I have the wrong slide in there. So I'm going to stop and I can pull up that video in a moment. Let me do this. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to switch my share to the video, and this is where we'll stop. I want to show one video of an interaction between a speech and language therapist and a child to show an example of floor time. So with that said, we'll go here.
Oh, we're nearly done. You're waiting. Not yet, we're waiting.
And I want to highlight the noises that you're hearing are in the background. There's really very little to no verbal interaction between the two of them, yet she's a speech and language therapist. And I want to point out something here. She's holding out her hand. He's been kind of pulling her in a little bit. She's holding out her hand here for him, kind of as an invitation at the halfway point. She's not forcing herself upon him, but watch what happens in this connection that she has with him. He reaches out and pulls her into the interaction. And that this is about developing an active social agent, not a child that responds to others, and that's okay. And there's a time and a place for that. But we want to develop the child to have their own thinking about it, and in communication, that they're able to initiate communication with someone else. So I'm going to stop it there. He's reaching out and touching her face. And I highlight that she's a speech and language therapist because we often, with kids that have developmental differences, especially around language and communication, people can get really focused on the words and getting word production. What she's focused on, she's going to get to word production, I'm guessing, but what she's focusing on is developing the developmental foundation of communication, that it's this back and forth. And a big part of that is developing the capacity that you can initiate and intentionally be in communication. Because when you can do that, and then you can be in this shared world with someone else, then the opportunity for growth and development is there, because we grow and develop in the shared world with other people. And it's just a nice, quick glimpse into, and that's in a gym in a school, a quick glimpse into the type of interaction that we often don't think of. I think oftentimes people don't think of as how valuable that is, but that is building the communication for that child, that he can become that active social agent and not just responding to someone else say truck, or whatever it may be. With that said, and from a time standpoint, I'm going to stop here because I think we've presented enough to get some glimpse into this, and we'll encourage you. We have within ICDL, a big part of what we do is to train parents and train professionals. We do have a full DIR 101 course, which is a 12-hour course. It's not an expensive course, especially for parents. The price is lower. There's times available in all sorts of different time zones. So if you're really interested and want to learn more, that's a great starting place, is the DIR 101 course. And with that said, Gil, you've probably looked at the questions a little bit more, but with that said, I'll pause and see where we want to go from here.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff and Gil, for your talk. with much insight and encouragement for all the parents and all the researchers based in Japan. Our neurodiversity NPO is now concentrating on the operation of the neurodiversity school in Tokyo, but we would love to expand our services in the near future. And we would love you to be updated, all the participants to be updated for our services in the, we are starting soon. And for us also to consider, can we put the QR code on for the to register we would like you to register on our mailing list. And also for us to consider the contents of our services, we ask you to answer a very short questionnaire, which would pop up. Yeah, we'll just take 1 minute, 2 minutes or so.
And that, as you're doing that, I'll offer a closing thought from me to all of you. All of you came to this because something about Floortime is intriguing to you, and probably something about current services or education or whatever it may be, you may be questioning whether it should be different. I just want to offer some encouragement that those questions are valid and are probably the right questions to be asking. And whether it's Floortime or something else that you explore, Floortime is really the leading developmental approach, especially when we talk about neurodivergent kids and kids with autism. But whatever it is, know that those questions are valid, and they're probably the exact right questions that need to be asked, even if the system that you're in, and we see this throughout the world, in the States and Japan and all the places that Gil and I go around the world, systems are hard to move. School systems, governmental systems, insurance systems, whatever it is, are hard to move. But you're asking and feeling the right questions, and keep going down that road and keep exploring those.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you all sometime very soon. I know Jeff will be here. He has already plans to come to Tokyo, and yeah, we look forward to meeting all of you sometime soon. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
have a great day. Have a great evening. Good night.